Thanks, Praveen.
Beautiful. So we're talking about why building your virtual executive presence and professional brand has never mattered more.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And someone like you, who has been a Melissa, has been a pioneer in the personal branding space. She's the founder of Ascension Group and has spent over 10 years plus working with high performing leaders to unleash the power of the executive presence from the inside out. Yes, inside out. And Melissa runs her own PQ proprietary tools, and she works with organizations like EY, Amazon, KPMG, MX, and the list goes on. Welcome again,
Thank
Melissa.
you so much.
All right, let's talk to me about, obviously we had an interesting time with this COVID, and talk to me about what are you seeing now in the virtual world in regards to how people are showing up, Melissa.
Well, it's a good question, Praveen. I'm seeing a lot of variation. So, who would have thought when we started this year a decade ago, um, that most of the world would be shut down, that would be working from home, and that our virtual presence had never mattered more. I mean, we went from 10 million users to 200 million users in just 3 months of Zoom. So, a lot of
Wow.
people weren't equipped with the technology. They didn't understand the physiology needed to really have that virtual presence. I mean, up until now, businesses and people really hadn't thought about what their virtual presence meant, or nor did they really think about how their virtual presence was felt by others up until now.
Yeah, it's so critical, isn't it? Because you are talking not only about the physical presence but virtual presence, which is, everything is such a very unpredictable, and things are
Um,
changing so much. Yeah.
They are, and techniques that would have worked really well in person
Mm.
now really change as you've got the little quadrants, like the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
So the small subtleties that we were normally communicating when in person,
Mhm.
people are not detecting them. So it is a lot harder um, to make the right impact. And so I'm seeing things that people are doing wrong that are detracting from their
Right.
message, and that really is limiting their ability to have great influence and presence on camera.
You bet, you bet. Now I can see a number of the viewers are just tuned in actually from a different social media, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Yes, we are in YouTube Live. If you're just tuned in, I'm with Melissa Lewis, a pioneer in personal branding. We are all talking about why this virtual executive presence and professional brand in 2021 and moving ahead. Why is that matters? So let's work out about the executive presence. And a lot of our viewers are very curious to know, Mel, what is executive presence? How do we know if we has anyone?
If you have
Yeah.
presence. Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So what is executive presence? Often we hear it's, how we would communicate. Is it standing up tall? Is it speaking louder in
Hmm.
meetings? Is it wearing a tailored suit? Really, up until now, it's been very much that elusive factor. You know when someone's got it, but when do they not? And I'm sure you've come across people, Prabin, that ooze that X factor, that
Hmm.
really have that charisma and charm. And then other times you've met people that really gave you nothing. Now, although these are two great examples of what presence is and isn't, it doesn't really get to the heart of the issue. And a few years ago, I got very interested because I kept hearing about leaders lacking presence. And I thought, well, what is it? So I started Googling the term a few years
Right.
ago. And it turns out it's the second highest research term for leadership coaching behind general leadership.
Interesting.
Interesting. And
Hmm.
whilst I was also Googling, I found the only company in the world that were able to give a definition and a model to what executive presence meant. And that meant the ability for leaders to engage,
Hmm.
align,
Right.
inspire, and move others to take action. So Bates Communication not only developed a model,
Hmm.
but a definition. So people understood the reason why having executive presence meant so much. And what they found was through their robust scientific approach was that executive presence was the driving force behind organizational and personal success. Now, when they look at executive presence, they look at three pillars:
Right.
your character,
Yep.
your substance, and your style. So, character being unique qualities that are unique to you. So, are you seen as being authentic? Do you have trust? Do you have
Hmm.
humility and concern? Your substance being your unique depth and breadth of experience, and then your style. So not just how you look, Praveen,
Yeah.
although that is important as a leader, but more about what's your ability to get others on board. How do you influence? Because when you have presence, you have a much greater chance of having influence. And as we know, the higher you up in business, the higher you up in your executive career, you need to get people on board your ideas, because that allows you to get things done.
You bet, you bet. And that's where the thought leadership comes up, isn't it? Because as a leader, you really curate that ideas, curate that factor, or curate that the new ways to transform the businesses. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the three pillars, if you think about it like three wheels on a tricycle,
Right.
each wheel is as important as the other if you want to move forward efficiently and effectively. Now, if one or two wheels are not pumped up, Prabin, what that does is it puts a lot of pressure. That's why you do need to invest in your character, your substance, and your style. So all three are very important if you want to have executive presence. You can't just have one without the other. It's like saying you've got executive style, but you've
Right.
got no substance. You're an empty suit.
You bet, you bet. And that's where I think when we met, I still remember the first time you were saying, look, the leaders need to be actually inside out rather than just the outside and the
That's ex-
style wise, isn't it?
That's exactly right. I mean, style is your most readily observable pillar because it's the first thing you see and experience about you. But you must have the substance, which is your depth and your wisdom and your practical wisdom, your vision, your ability to really get to the heart of the issue. And then you've got to have the character. If I don't trust you, all your substance means nothing, and I don't care how good you look,
Yeah.
because the merit is what matters,
No, that's a
and
great point.
especially in business.
That's a great point, Mel. That's awesome. And again, if you're just tuning in, feel free to give us a thumbs up, comments, or share this post. If there's any specific question in terms of your personal branding or your business branding, just type down, and I'll pass that to Melissa. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Then, how do you mention about executive presence, and those viewers who are watching this right now, some of the C suites and business leaders, they understand the executive presence, and if they don't, then how do you elevate the executive presence,
Well,
man?
exactly. To elevate your executive presence virtually, let's talk about virtually, because
Please.
it's the most common thing now that everyone around the world is going through in the way they're communicating. So I'd like you to think of the acronym FIELDS, and Bates Communication did this. So F being, you must frame yourself. So 9 times out of 10, we've been accustomed to seeing people's washing baskets in the background. We're seeing the laundry, we're seeing the kitchen. What it does is it really detracts from your message and the words you're saying. So frame your face from the top half up,
Right.
because that's where we do business, and especially on camera. The second is eye, so image. So make sure that you do have a clean background. As you can see today, it's not hard to have a clean back wall. And your image is also your attire. Make sure you wear clothing that's blocked colors. You've done that too. Very easy on the eye. Stay away from patterns. Stay away from wishy-washy colors. You really want it to be easy for people to say yes to you, easy for people to watch and to talk to you. And ease elevation, making sure your eye level is at the eye level of the camera. That's really important. L is for lighting. So you've got to make sure, and I know before we even started here, it was all about the lighting, thanks to
Absolutely.
our film crew. But lighting is really important. You want the light in front of you rather than behind you. So that's really important. And D is distance, making sure you're at the right angle with the camera in terms of not being too forward and not being too back. So they're the five key points if you want to really elevate your virtual presence, and remember field.
And sometime, I mean, I get what you're saying, Mel, but sometime, especially if the leaders or business leaders are working, let's say, from the home or from just on holiday homes, because obviously we are now, this is
Anywhere around the
yeah,
world, anything
anywhere
goes.
around the world, and December, January, all the festival times coming up. So what would that still, these 5 points or 5 tips, would that still validate? Because sometimes it
Absolutely.
would be very hard, isn't it?
Well, not really. I mean, everyone's got a white wall somewhere along the line, and you've got to do your prep work before, so you're able to see yourself on camera. So have a few different books and a few different sizes and have a look, and then get someone to take a photo of you, or you can take a photo, and you can easily see whether you've got the right lighting, whether you've framed yourself correctly. You choose your clothes that you're going to wear, so make sure you have got something that one you feel good in, but
Right.
tend to stay with a block color and clean line. So yes, they're applicable for anywhere around the world, in any room. I'm sure someone can find a white wall. There's no excuses anymore.
You bet. Otherwise, you just have to paint it, isn't it? That's a great. So these are some common mistakes in the virtual world. So what you're saying literally is it matters, especially when as a leader, when you're portraying that, whether that may be conference or virtual meetings or any of the Zoom meetings or any of the conference, it matters. Everything matters. Yeah.
Well, it matters, like if you're in the same room as someone. I mean, just because we're virtually presenting doesn't mean you don't get dressed. So I'm saying, the 5 common mistakes that I'm seeing are people not taking it seriously. So they're wearing their casual clothes
Yep.
as opposed to their work clothes. I'm saying when you get dressed from your shoes upwards. It's the psychology of the way you feel. It's a systematic approach that when you wear clothes, you actually feel confident.
All right.
And that you mean business as well. Another thing I'm seeing is the etiquette of the microphone. Turn off your microphone so people can't hear the background noise. We all know we're working from home, but we don't want to hear the doorbell go, the cat screaming, your mum in the background. It's just not professional. Once again, detracting from the impact that you can have on camera. Another thing is wanting to invite everyone to Zoom meetings. I mean, we don't need 1 million people to make a good meeting. So I think it's about, we don't need to invite everyone, nor does everyone want to be invited to all these constant Zoom meetings. And the other one is, which I've already alluded to, is having a clear background. Yeah, just making sure that it's really simple, and that it still reflects the person or the business that you are as well, which is really important.
You bet. And I still remember, that reminds me, I think having the clear plan when we met, having the clear agenda is so critical, isn't it? Because sometimes when you, especially in virtual or even physical, and then the time when you have a meeting, you just forget everything. So have a clear outset or clear plans.
Well, preparation's the key. Preparation's the key for life, whether it's you're doing a video, whether you're conducting a meeting, whether you're doing a board meeting. I mean, preparation's absolutely the key.
That's great. Now, that's great insight, Mel. Now, other things, if I can ask you, obviously, earlier when I met with you, you mentioned, I love your notion about preparing. Look, it's not about the IQ and EQ. So, the leaders must need to be aware of the PQ. And those viewers who are watching this right now, would you mind giving a bit of deep dive on what is the PQ? What is PQ?
What is PQ? Good question. So about 10 years ago when I started my business, I realized that in order to be a great leader, you needed so much more than IQ and EQ. Although they're important, now more than ever, especially now with COVID and we've got the biggest pool of talent, you needed to have PQ, which is your presence quotient. That's something I developed. So if you haven't heard of it, that's why. So my philosophy is that you can't just rely on your technical skills to be noticed and to be heard and to be valued. You need to have presence. When we look at presence, it's your character, your substance, and style. You need to make sure that you're working on all 3 pillars at all times. You are now competing with people who have not only been in the industry for years, but have built a network, have grown their brand, have a commercial demeanor which allows them to have confident conversations. So if you want to get a new job, if you want to step up, if you want to be successful, having executive presence will allow you that, because when you have presence, you have ability to influence. When you lack presence, you lack your ability to influence, which means that people are less likely to refer you jobs, people are less likely to think of you as front of mind, and the list goes on. But when you do have presence, they think of you.
Yes.
They want to refer you. They want to work with you because they like, trust, and know you.
Absolutely.
So that's why presence is so important. And we're going to hear a lot more about me regarding the PQ, the presence quotient. And
Beautiful.
so I'm very lucky that I'm one of just a very small handful of people that is accredited in
Yeah.
the Bates communication
Wow.
tool from Boston. And I brought that to Australia because I was sick of hearing,
Mm,
especially women,
mm,
that they were being overlooked, that they just lacked presence. And I
mm.
said, well, what does that mean? And when I asked them, no one really had the language to really ascertain what was present. So now with this Bates tool, I have data, I have science,
Beautiful.
and I'm able to really elude their intentions versus perceptions.
Love it, love it. It's not just about the flippy fluffy. What you're saying is very much
We
science,
have
very much
science, we
data
have
driven.
data,
It.
absolutely.
Mm,
And that's
mm.
what we need.
Beautiful. I'm conscious with the time. Once again, Mel, thank you so much. Is there a for all those viewers who are watching this right now? Is there any final words out there? Anything? If especially now, I can see a number of our existing clients and prospects, and everyone is looking. Okay, so 2021 is here, new branding, new things. So, anything you want to add in, and how you can be a value to this to the people?
Yeah, I think for now is the time to really look at your plan, and whatever plans you had pre-COVID, everyone needs to do a reset, whether it's individual or business. So it's time to look at your business plan, look at your branding of your business online and offline, making sure it's consistent, making sure it's congruent to your values and your positioning, because it is a saturated market out there. Everyone's screaming online for business. Everyone's saying they're good at what they do. So to be able to really distinguish yourself, you need to have a plan, you need to have a strategy, and you need to have a good digital presence. You
You bet.
really do.
Mm, you bet. So that's a great point, Mel. So if I think you are very active on LinkedIn.
I am on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
So feel free to just jump into a LinkedIn and
Yes, if
find.
anyone wants to connect with me, connect under Melissa Lewis.
Yes.
Um, that would be great.
And your website is also right there, theascensiongroup.com.au.
Yes, and I've got also a free PQ quiz. So my
Right.
present quotient quiz, I have done that as a free tool to really ascertain where you can see where in fact you have presence, or where there's opportunities for you to further develop your presence.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Melissa, once again. That has been a really good
Thanks,
chat, and
Praveen.
I hope the viewers have found the value of it. And definitely, if you just tuning in, go ahead down to Melissa's website, the Ascension Group, and download that PQ, test that PQ. It's even personally I
It's a
have done it,
quiz.
so it's a
Yes.
quiz. It's so fun, a couple of minutes. So there we go. Once again, if you're watching this again from anyone, any social media, just gives a thumbs up, share, and like the post. We are all here committed to build the brand and monetize it. And yeah, look forward to seeing you in the future episodes. Thanks again. Bye for now. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks.